Hi, Gordon. We're going to talk about assembling some warning lamps, affectionately known sometimes as idiot lights, on a 123 diesel. You know, if you watch the gauges continually, the oil pressure gauge right there, of course, and the water temperature gauge, there would be no need for the lamps. But it's real easy to just be driving along and not paying a lot of attention. And of course, a red flashing lamp, which is what we're going to put in there, gets the attention of the driver. My thought about installing these was really prompted by something that happened to my folks who are retired. They had an old Mercedes like this, and one of the heater hoses blew, and it pumped all the water out of it. And when it pumped the water out of it, of course, it burned the engine up. And had they had an indicator lamp, they may not have had that problem. When that heater hose blew, you know, it's not under any pressure, that heater hose. So when it blows up or when it leaks, it just slowly leaks water out of it. The same thing would happen if you had perhaps a leak in a radiator hose. And then on another occasion, unfortunately, there was a leak that developed around the O-ring on the oil filter, and it broke loose and slowly pumped the oil out from a leak around the oil filter. But another possible oil leak would be on the oil cooler lines. If they started leaking oil, and or if one of them broke loose, you could pump the oil out of an engine very rapidly, and you would burn the engine up that way too. So there's a real good reason, we think, for installing some warning lamps on oil pressure and water. Actually, ours won't be water temperature, it'll be water level, which is even better. It'll give a much earlier indication. So we've got a float assembly that we're going to attach to the water reservoir, so that if the water ever gets low, we get a flashing indicator. We're going to put our indicators right in the dash. We're going to put them right here. There happen to be two blank spots in a 123 on this 300D or a 240D, either one, and so we can put each of our flashing indicators here, and we'll put them in the same order that they exist up here in the dash. So we'll put the oil to the right so that we can always remember that that's the oil, and we'll put the water to the left next to the adjuster on the clog. So let's look under the hood. Okay, the first thing we need to do is swap out the tank. The reservoir that we need is one with a float in there, and you can see that this one doesn't have a setup for a float. It's a federal version, but the California tank has a float. If you already have a California tank, we've shown you how to put that float in there. But we're going to just trade this whole thing out, and we've already got the float set up in this tank. Now, of course, there's some antifreeze in this thing, and we're going to have to take this hose off. Take this off so I can see what we're doing here. And before we take that hose off, we're going to have to drain some of the antifreeze out of this one so that we don't make a real big mess. So, as you may recall, there's a drain plug on that radiator, and we need to drain the antifreeze or water, you know, below that level. So we have to drain maybe a half a gallon out of the tank. So let's do that first. We've got something to catch that, and it'll just go down here underneath. And as you recall, there's just a little drain plug. We will drain it down until it's at least below It's kind of messy. There's not much you can do about it. Let's just look up here and see where we are. That looks good. So I might as well just tighten this back up while we're under here. Now, take that tank off. So first, just take the hoses. Off on top and bottom. Now, the tank is just held on by 3 8mm screws. So I'll take those screws out and just screw the new tank right down in its place. Now you can see there's a drain, an overflow tube. So let me just set this on the workbench. Actually, that's fine. So we're going to thread that overflow tube in the same position as the old one. And just put it right on there. Any luck, have it on in a couple minutes. Now I want to leave this front screw off. We're going to use that as a ground screw for our little electro float connection there, so leave that off for a moment. So you want to put that hose back on, of course, and then of course the overflow hose too. So this takes a couple minutes here. This happens to be an original Mercedes clamp. It's a 7mm. Could have used a screwdriver, but I can get a much better grip on the thing with a 7mm nut driver. Similarly, this is still one of those original Mercedes clamps. Okay, now other than that third screw, which I said we're going to use for ground, so now we'll put our wiring on there. We're going to attach 2 wires, and in this particular switch it really doesn't matter. You could go to the front or the back, but we'll go to the front with that one. That'll be our ground wire, and now we'll put that third screw, and that'll be the ground for the switch. We'll hook it up first. And now, in your kit, there's a black wire. It's already got a terminal on it, a terminal lug, and it's got a piece of tubing. We're going to put that piece of tubing right behind the battery. And the reason we put that piece of tubing on there is just to afford us a little protection there, because there's all kinds of battery acid and we don't really want to destroy that wire with battery acid. So what we need is to kind of thread this thing under, if we can, under the tie wraps that already exist to make it simpler. And we need enough to come to this connection. Now I'm going to thread it underneath there and right to there. So we need to come to the other connector. We just snap them on there and make it kind of neat. And we have some tie wraps in the kit. Let's put one more tie wrap. Cut.
Okay.
All right, so we'll put a tie wrap perhaps there, and underneath, and then we need a couple of tie wraps. Our piece of tubing is sticking out over here, so if we could tie wrap to the wire that goes to the mono valve, I think that'd be pretty good. We can snip those off later. A couple more tie wraps. Push that over to the other side. Oops. And then, just wherever we can, tie wrap another one. There. And now we'll leave this. We're going to go through a hole. We're going to make a hole through the firewall here. There's plenty of extra spaces to make holes in one of these rubber plugs that comes through the firewall. The one we're going to use is right here, right there, right underneath the fuse box holder. We're going to put these wires through that hole, but we need another wire. That wire is going to come from our oil pressure switch, so we'll wait until we get them both in the same place before we thread them through there. We're actually going to use a coat hanger to do that. So now let's go to the oil pressure sender that we're going to put in there, the oil pressure switch. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that oil pressure switch in the hose that runs to the oil cooler. So we're actually going to cut the hose right down below where it's clamped, right down in here, around the front of the pulley for the power steering pump. And we're going to clamp our little oil pressure sending unit right in there. To do that, I'm going to use a pair of cutters. A sharp knife will work. It's a pretty tough piece of hose, but I think you'll find it a pretty simple procedure. So let me go get that. So this is the assembly that we're going to put in line. As you can see, we're going to have to cut out a little bit of hose there in order for this to work properly. So we're going to shorten that hose a little bit and cut it. It won't take us very long. We're going to use I'm using just a pair of cutters. I find them very convenient to use that kind of cutters for hose, but you know, a knife will work too. Now, if you remove this reservoir for the windshield washer, I think you'll find you have a little more room to work there. And we're going to drip a little oil. That oil line is not under any pressure right now. The car's been off for a while. The pressure goes down right away, but I think you'll see that it's going to be kind of a tough spot, a tight spot, and we're going to be careful to clip it about 4 or 5 inches from the top. And I've put an old piece of carpet underneath there just to catch the little oil that's going to run out. It's not going to be very much. I think you'll be able to see it. You see I'm running a little oil out of there. And now I'm going to cut just a little bit out of the hose so that I'll have room for my assembly in there. Maybe an inch or 2 out of the hose. And you can see that there's a little bit of oil running out, but not too much. And then what I'm going to do is I should put those clamps on there first. Put a clamp on there so that I can get it in the position where I'll be able to tighten it. And let's just see if I've got that thing in approximately the right length. I may have to cut a little more before I'm finished here. Well, I believe I'll have to cut just a little bit more of that hose. I didn't get quite enough off of it. The easiest thing way to put this thing in there actually is to take the top nut on the oil cooler line off. And I've just got a big crescent. That way we can actually assemble the oil pressure switch with those barbed connections and then put it back. It gives us a lot more flexibility. It's kind of in a tight spot. You gotta fight it on there sort of, so taking it off sure helps. So if we take it off, then I've already cut this. So you can see that now I've got it on there. Now what I think I'll do is go ahead and tighten those clamps up now and wipe some of the oil off. Right. Tighten the clamps up now. I don't know if you can see down in there, but what I want to do is tighten our clamps around those barbs. I think you can cut it now because it's just going to be okay. Now we've got that, got those two clamps on the barbs, and now we're just going to put the nut back, and the rest of it is pretty straightforward. This is we've done the two messiest parts with the oil and the water. Now I got it started. Now I just want to make sure that the terminal on that the top of that post on the oil pressure sending unit doesn't touch anything, because that's hot. I mean, that's got 12 volts applied to it, or could, depending upon the situation. Well, it does. And either the oil pressure switch is open or shut, but we don't want that terminal to ground, so we just want to, we're awfully close to some ground pieces, but you can see that it's right there, and I've got it far enough away. And of course, the brown wire is going to be my ground wire. I got a little oil on that. We're going to ground that to the chassis here in a moment, just like we did that float. We're going to ground it. Okay, now the brown wire that comes off the body of that oil pressure switch is going to be grounded. I'm just going to choose one of the holes. There's a lot of holes in this body, and just put a little sheet metal screw in there. So the way we're going to ground this connection, I'm just looking for one of the holes that's convenient, is right here. Now I run the wire underneath. Well, maybe I didn't get it underneath all the wires. Let me go back. I want to get it out of the way. So I run it underneath the wires that exist, and so I'll just screw it into one of those holes right there, and that's I think just maybe our 5/16 or 8 millimeter, either one. So that should get our ground connection. Now for the hot connection, we have a black wire, or I'm sorry, a white wire already with a little spade connection on there. So what we want to do is just run that wire, and we'll tie wrap it off too, get it out of the way. So we just want to plug it in, and probably it's easier if I run it through some of the tie wraps that exist here, whichever ones are convenient for you. There's one, but it's awfully tight already. Let's see if I can get it in there. There we go. So I'll run this wire underneath again, the wires that exist, and plug it in just to the connection there. Give myself a little slack. And then what I'm going to do is tie wrap this one too, or run it underneath the existing tie wraps. Sometimes they're a little tight. Let's see if I can get it in there. Yeah, that one's just in there, just there, got it. Now I think I'll run it underneath that relay housing, that black relay housing. Now, got a black wire and a white wire. Need to run them through the housing. Now to do that, we're going to use a coat hanger in just a moment. Let me show you. Now, the way I typically do this is take a coat hanger, just straighten one out, and then I put these two wires together and I just tape it real smooth. And I'm going to force the coat hanger through the hole in the firewall, through the little rubber grommet there, the little rubber boot. If I can get the end of this tape healed up here. So if I tape it, and I probably ought to take my gloves off when finished with the nasty work. Tape it smooth so that it'll go through that hole. Okay, so if we can get the light down here, you want to just through one of the ones that's not used, maybe that one right there on top. It'll poke right through there. We'll have to go in on the other side and get it, but just bump up against another wire. There we go. Now we'll go inside, drop the kick panel down, and we'll be able to get that and just pull those wires through there. So that's a cut. Now we need to take this kick panel off, and the very first thing I've done is take I just use a little knife. I pop those little covers. There's little covers that cover up the screws for this kick panel, and there are 3 of them, and it's just a Phillips screwdriver. There are 3 screws that hold this kick panel up. What we want to do is take those 3 screws, and then there happen to be another couple of screws that secure way down over here. There's a little gray screw that also, it's right next to the handle, right next to the brake pedal, and if you twist it, it's just a little snap lock thing. It pops right out. Likewise, there's one near the accelerator. This one happens to be missing, so we don't have to do it, but there is one right up there near the accelerator. And so now we can just drop this panel. Now you can see, I'll just take it out of here for right now, just to get it out of our way so you can see what we're doing. Now you see that my coat hanger wire came through there, and I'll just gently pull our wires through, and now I just want to get on the other side and make sure that they're not tangled up, so just bear with me for a moment here.
Ready to...
Okay. That's what we're going to hook up, and so now we can, I usually just cut that, mess with it later. So I'll cut that off. And now I've got the 2 wires that I'm interested in hooking up. Now the next thing I'm going to have to do is put our assembly into the dash. We're going to mount it up into the dash panel up here near our seatbelt indicator and near the indicator for the glow plugs. And as you may recall, perhaps not, we need to take this instrument panel out. Now in order to do that, I always just push them from the back. They make a special little hook that you can pull them out with, but I never use it. I just take my hand and push it from the back. And once I pop it out of there, then I've got to disconnect the speedometer cable as the very first thing. Okay, so finally that nut was tough. It was on there tight. I got that speedometer cable off, and now you can see that the instrument cluster, I don't have to take anything else off. I can tilt it this way, and I can get the things that I need. Now, I'm going to feed our lamps up right next to the switch, and I don't know if you can see this, but we're coming right up next to the ignition switch, And we're going to come up, and we want the lamp with the white wire to be toward the passenger side. So there's the white wire. And we're going to put that lamp right in that hole, and that piece of tubing will just barely, actually just perfectly fit in there, very snug. And now we're going to put the other one, you see, right there. Now that one is going to be our water sending unit. And so now all four of the holes are occupied. Now you remember this one is the indicator for the glow plugs, and this one is the indicator, I believe, for seat belts, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Yes, for seat belts. And so our oil pressure sending unit is there, and our water is there. And now we're just going to put this dash assembly back. Now I've got that speedometer. I always find it more convenient to do it from the back side. I never have been able to get them. My hand's too big, I guess, from the top. Now it just plugs back in. So it's got a little rubber seal around it that just holds it. The rubber holds it in place. So we just push it back in there. And now underneath, you see, we have 3 wires available to us: a red one, a black one, and a white one. And we're going to hook the red one up to power, and we're going to hook the black to the black and the white to the white from what came through the firewall. Now, I don't know if you can see, we're going to have to locate a wire where we're going to derive some power. And there is a cable that runs right up in there. You can barely see it. And just from experience, I happen to know that one of the wires that's in that cable has 12 volts switched, and that's what we want. We want 12 volts when the key is on, and we want nothing when the key is off. And so it's a red wire with a green tracer. And I'll try to point it out with a pocket knife. You can see it, it's right there, right at the tip of my knife. So it's a red wire with a green tracer. That's the wire that we're going to tap into in order to get our power. Now what we're going to use is a little tap terminal, and we're going to hook it around that wire and clamp it down, and you can see, I think, what it does. One wire goes all the way through, and then the wire that gets tapped gets stubbed up against a little catch right there, and this little metal thing slices through them both, and so it's a tap. And that's what we're going to do. What we're going to do, and this is a tight connection, but on that red wire with a green tracer, we're going to tap into it. And so I'm going to put our little tap connection right around it. As I said, it's a tight connection. And then put the red wire up against it. And then I always use just a pair of pliers to mash the steel connector through there. And so I just did. And then we just lock it in place. And usually I just also do that with a pair of pliers. Okay, got that. Now we should have power, and one of the ways that I could verify power, I happen to have a little test light here. If I hook this up to the brake pedal, the ground, and put my little probe in there, I should be able to turn the key on and off and verify that I do in fact have power. And I do, you see. So I've got 12 volts now hooked up to our lamps. And now all we need to do is connect the last 2 wires. You recall, coming through the firewall, we've got black one and a green one, or I'm sorry, black one and a white one, and we just want to hook those up, and we're going to wire net them Now I need to get a pair of strippers and strip those back. So now hopefully we gave you plenty of wire. We want to trim off any excess that we've got. So we're gonna just take again a pair of clients, clip that off, and strip the white and the black back. And now we just want to wire nut the white to the white and the black to the black, and we should be done. Got the white to the white and the black to the black wire nutted together, and those go to respectively the the white is to the oil pressure and the black is to the float. And now if we turn the key on, we should see two flashing lamps. And of course we haven't filled it up with water, so that's why the flashing lamp for the water, and of course there's no oil pressure, and that's why the oil pressure light. Now in a moment, so everything is fine, our circuits are working. Now of course whenever we have water in there, the flashing light will never come on as long as we're full of water. When we first turn the ignition on and there's no oil pressure to that line before the engine is cranked up, we should have always, when we start the car up, a flashing light for oil. So we hopefully can make that water light go out by filling the reservoir back up, and the float comes up, and hopefully it'll go back out. The only thing left to do now is just to reassemble this this kick panel. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll fill it up with water. Okay, so I've filled it back up with water with antifreeze, and you can see it's now got the float level back up. And let's go chest it and make sure that our lamp goes out, and then we'll start the engine up and make sure that when we get oil pressure, we get that lamp out too. And then the last thing we want to do after we start it up is absolutely make sure we don't have any oil pressure leaks there. Make sure that hose doesn't drip or anything. So let's start. Alright, now we've got the one on the right, which is the oil pressure. It's still on. We don't have any oil pressure, but we got lots of water, and that lamp went out. Now let's crank the engine up, and hopefully, see, we got oil pressure back, and now the lamp is out. So now when we shut the engine off, if we shut it off, you can see that I've got the key off still, but if I turn the key back on, I've still got oil pressure. Now it went down, okay? So now as the oil pressure leaked down, lamp comes back on, let's crank it up again, goes out, turn it off, and immediately we ought to still have it. Now you see the key is on, and in a minute, if I just leave it sit there for a minute, as that oil pressure goes down, the lamp comes back on. So I know that switch is working. Okay. Okay. Good check. We done? Yes.